met a gypsy.
One outbreak, Darwin shuts down.
And it's like...
This is insane.
Yeah.
And then,
it's cases and deaths. And the other point that I didn't raise before in my car accident analogy is that, like, so I was on board with this when it came to we can't overwhelm the hospital system.
so was I.
Fair enough.
So was I.
Fair enough. That's fucking all good, right? But then I'm looking and I'm going, 32,300 serious injuries from motor vehicles. And the fucking hospital systems can handle that just fine, right? So
Yeah,
we're talking
but not all of them are. Oh, yeah, some of them.
serious,
serious. Sorry.
serious injury from a car accident. This ain't a fender bender. This is a serious injury.
Yeah.
So I broke this collarbone racing, and I went into the hospital. I grew up in Cairns. Went into the hospital in Cairns, waiting for my surgery. Got pre-op, got the whole thing. Huge car accident. Basically took over the entire hospital. I went home, didn't get my surgery.
Yeah.
So it's a real thing. Like these you can get these car accidents come in and they just take like all of the resources from emergency room or trauma. That's not the same thing as putting somebody on a ventilator. Am I wrong in saying that?
Well, I think we need to protect intensive care unit, but we can do that with
100%.
ivermectin and just procedures. But let's
we're not having 6 or 7 doctors rush to a patient, open a patient up, blood transfusions, then the
I get your point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if we can have, if our hospital system can sustain 32,300 serious injuries, I'm just don't see like that. So that argument doesn't seem to hold as much weight. Also, another thing when it comes to the management of this situation is, where's the fucking COVID hospitals? Where's the quarantine facilities? So the problem with the initial outbreaks in Melbourne and Sydney is that we're doing hotel quarantine, right? So you've got flights coming in internationally, you've got cruise ships coming in. They stick them in a fucking Marriott in the Sydney CBD, the most population dense parts of Australia, and then we know that it's an airborne virus. You get people breathing the same air. They're in their hotels without masks on, and which are ineffective if you go by the World Health Organization at one point in time anyway. You've got these people breathing air. You've got janitors that are cleaning the rooms. You've got security guards that end up fucking the people in quarantine. So it's like, at what point, like, why can we even call this a quarantine? Like, is a quarantine not a scientific procedure where you eliminate variables from whatever it is that you're trying to quarantine? You're like limiting exposure factors, right?
Yes.
Putting people in a fucking Marriott in the Sydney CBD and then letting the people that clean the rooms and breathe the air and fuck the people, and then you're letting them go into public transport.
Yeah.
Hey, I ain't responsible for that. Do you know who's responsible for that? Who's responsible?
Federal government.
The federal government. So you've got the federal government that is directly we live on a fucking island. Directly responsible for setting up these hotel quarantines, right? If this is a global pandemic, do you know how much money we spent on infrastructure for the Olympics?
No.
$6.7 billion. The net cost to the Australian taxpayer, $2.7 billion. So these are facilities that essentially aren't used now. You go to Olympic Park I've been there for music festivals. I've never been to the indoor rowing center. I've never been to the kayaking fucking White Rock. All of these facilities are still being maintained to this day. So the Australian government was down to spend nearly $7 billion of taxpayer money to make a facility for the Olympics that can't be used after the Olympics, and we can't spend anything on a fucking COVID hospital in a global pandemic. And let's put that out of the picture then. So this, and again, I'm just a dickhead podcaster about motocross. Don't do the quarantine in Sydney CBD, Melbourne CBD, the most population dense parts of Australia. How about let's go Wagga Wagga, Orange. All right, 2 regional towns away from people. You go, hey guys, global pandemic, we're going to fucking pay X amount of money. the Wagga Wagga hospital is now going to become a COVID hospital. It's only going to be used for COVID patients. They're going to be transported here. It's going to be treated as a proper quarantine facility. There's no public transport, limiting exposure. In Brisbane, let's do it in Ipswich, you know? And it's like, that seems to me like a plan that you've got. Leave the people in the cities. Don't close the fucking borders. You get people that come in on a cruise ship or a flight, bang, they go straight. Use the military. Use the military. Use the military for what they're supposed to be used for. Set up field hospitals. None of this shit got done at all. And I'm a fucking idiot. And
No,
this
you're
is
not.
this is stuff that I think could work.
Let's before we go to quarantine, let's go to the data, and then I'd like to come back to the overall plan, and then we hit quarantine as part of that. The data, right? I said to the government, give me the data. They didn't. I said, give us the data, the people the data. They didn't. So in March, Senate estimates this year, 12 months after the virus arrived, plenty of time for the data. I said to the Chief Medical Officer and the Secretary for the Department of Health, give me the data that characterizes the virus. Tell me the transmissibility, how easy it is to be contagious, how easily it spreads, and the severity. And
What about comorbidities?
Well, that comes from this. So then I said to them, I want it not only as it is, but I want it in relation to other past serious respiratory diseases, including severe flus, like Spanish flu, okay?
The problem with Spanish flu, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't really looked too much into this, but there was a guy, he's a really good guy, he challenged me on one of the posts that I made about COVID, and he referenced the Spanish flu. In my mind, though, it's not really a fair comparison because the age of mortality from COVID is so far over the life expectancy of Spanish flu. So, like, we're seeing essentially everybody that's dying of COVID is like 50 plus, right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't people that were 50 years old when the Spanish flu was around. Like,
Yeah.
really?
Spanish flu. Well, you're right. But so we look at when you look at the spreadability, the contagiousness of this COVID virus, right? It is quite high. All right. Severity on the government's own graph is low to moderate. I'll say it again. Severity is low to moderate. Less than many past flus. And some contagious, some flus that are more severe are more contagious than COVID. The symptoms of COVID are like a severe flu. Some people, as you point out, die from it. Some people don't even know they've got it.
So 95% of people that die from COVID have an average of 4 comorbidities. 5% of people that die from COVID have 0 comorbidities.
Right. So just come back to the summary of what I just said. On its own, it's not that big a deal. Now, because we know that there are you can stratify the deaths. You know that elderly die, more likely to die. You know that certain comorbidities are more likely to die. You know that obese people and people with compromised immune systems are more likely to die. So the first point I raised with the Chief Medical Officer was the plan was lockdowns, right? Now, let's go back to lockdowns now and then just say Governor DeSantis from Florida. And America's got 50 states, so you've got a good experiment going on right there. A lot of them have locked down, a lot of them haven't. Yeah. There's no difference between the response in the states between lockdowns and not lockdowns. If you look at Florida...
I got a lot of friends in Florida.
Yeah,
I get spoken to about Florida quite a lot.
And there are a lot of old people who retire in Florida.
Big time.
Big, very big, right? So Governor DeSantis of Florida...
Great golf courses.
...imposes a lockdown on Florida. Very soon after he imposed it, he removed it. And he said to the people, I'm sorry, we will never do that again. Never do it again. California's been in perpetual lockdown. Florida is doing better than California.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.